Today's lesson is add and subtract decimals, so make sure you grab a paper and pencil so you have something to write with. And remember, you can always pause the video and jump back if you miss something or if I'm going too fast. And in today's lesson, the most important thing that you remember is line up your decimals. If you're adding or subtracting with decimals, you must line up the decimals, or you'll get the answer wrong every time. So let's take a look at an example. And remember, we need to line up the decimals, so we'll keep that in mind as we're working these. So when you're adding and subtracting, you never do it sideways, so we need to rewrite them and stack them up. So I'll rewrite this number first, 21 and 54 hundredths. And you should do it on your paper as well. Next, I'm going to write this number underneath. But I need to remember, my most important thing is that I line up the decimals. So I'm actually just going to write my decimal first to make sure they're lined up. And you can see right here, they are perfectly lined up. Then if I look on the left side, I have a 4, so I'll write my 4 in on the left side. And on the right side, I have 7, 5, 8. So I'll write that in on the right side, 7, 5, 8. Next, I'll write my line at the bottom and my plus sign since I'm adding on this one. And then anywhere that I have gaps, I can put in zeros to fill the gaps. Because nothing's there, so the 0 shows that nothing is there. Now I can start adding. So 0 plus 8 is 8. 4 plus 5 is 9, so I'll write that underneath. 5 plus 7 is 12. So I'll write my 2 at the bottom and carry my 1. So this represents my 12. There's the 12 right there. I just had to carry the 1 for the 12. Now I can do 4 plus 1 plus 1. That'll give me 6. Write that underneath. And finally, 2 plus 0 is 2. And I can write that underneath. And then my final step is just to bring that decimal straight down. So we took all of this time to make sure these were lined up. So what we're going to do is just bring it straight down and put it right here. And that's how you can kind of check it. When you're done, all of your decimals should be perfectly lined up if you're adding or subtracting. And now down here in the corner, I'll show you the wrong way to do this so you can see what the common mistake is. So notice here in the wrong way, the decimals are not lined up. They should be lined up perfectly, but they're not. And now that I've added it, notice I got a totally different number there than I did on the correct way. Then to make problems even worse, I don't know where to put my decimal since they weren't lined up. Okay, in this example, we have 3 different numbers to add, but we're still going to use the same guiding principle. Line up your decimals. So first I'm going to copy this number down, and you should be doing the same on your paper. So if you need to pause the video and write them down, make sure you do that. Next, I'll copy this number, but I need to make sure the decimals line up. So I'm actually going to bring the decimal first. Then I can see I have a 3 on this side and a 1 on this side. And notice how my decimals line up. That should happen all the way down when you're adding or subtracting. Next, I'll write this number down. And again, I need my decimals to line up, so I'm going to put that first. Then I see I have a 7 and a 9 on this side and a 0 in the 1's place. Now I can draw my line and my addition sign since we're adding again. And then in all of these gaps, I can put zeros. And make sure you have this written down because you practicing with me at home is how you're actually going to get good at this. So pause the video if you need to and get caught up. So let's look at why it's important to line up the decimals. Because when I lined up the decimals, what that did was that forced the 1's place to line up, it forced the 10th's place to line up, it forced the 100th's place to line up, and it forced the 1,000th's place to line up. So that when we add them, we're actually adding the correct place values. So that's why it's important that you line up your decimals. And now we can go ahead and add them. So first, I'll add all of these 1,000ths places. So 4 plus 0 is 4. Next, I'll add these numbers that are in the 100ths place. So 9 plus 5 is 14. So I'll write the 4 down here and carry the 1 to make your 14. Next, I'm going to add all of these in the 10ths place. So here I know 7 plus 3 is 10. Plus 2 is 12, 13. So my 3 goes down here and carry the 1 for 13. And finally, I'll add my 1's place. So there I just have 1 plus 1, giving me 2. And then my final step is just bring that decimal straight down. And that's it, you're done. So your answer is 2 and 344 thousandths. So now let's take a look at a subtraction problem. but it still works the same way. We just need to make sure our decimals are lined up. First, I'll write this number, so 13. But uh-oh, there's no decimal here. Well, the easiest thing to think about is if this was money, how much money would this be? 13. Well, that'd be $13, right? Well, there's no change though, so it'd actually be $13.00. So when you see a number that looks like it doesn't have a decimal, just think about money. Well, it's 0 cents, so you can just do a decimal 00 to help you find where the decimal goes. Next, I'll write this number, but first I'm going to put my decimal to make sure they line up. Then on this side, I see 9, 4, 3, and on the left side, I see the 0. Now I can draw my line and a subtraction sign this time, since we're subtracting. Any gaps, I'll fill in with zeros so that everything lines up. And again, the most important part was lining up those decimals because that's going to tell me where the decimal goes in the answer as well. So now I'm going to start subtracting. I have 0 and I'm going to take away 3. Well, I can't do that, so I need to go next door to borrow. Nothing to borrow. Next door, nothing. So I'm actually going to be borrowing from the 3. So I'll cross that 3 off and put a 2. The 1 I took out I put here, making this a 10, but I'm still borrowing. So I'm going to cross that off, making it a 9. That makes this a 10. Cross that off, making it a 9, and finally I have it where I need it. So now I have a 10 minus 3. That gives us 7. Next is 9 minus 4, which gives us 5. 9 minus 9, which is 0. 2 minus 0, which is 2. And 1 minus 0, which is 1. And then my final step is to bring my decimal straight down. And I'm done. 12 and 57 thousandths is my answer.